You're listening to the Chad Hasty Show on demand. Good for you. Now download the KFYO app and listen live weekday afternoons 5 to 7 p.m. Central.
Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
Good evening, Lubbock, Amarillo, Abilene, Wichita Falls, Midland, Odessa, Dallas, Fort Worth, down in Houston, over in El Paso, and anywhere else inside or outside the great state of Texas, wherever you may be listening. Welcome into the Chad Hasty Show. Glad to have you with us today. Hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday, April 10th of 2024. Maybe you're on your way home. Maybe you're still at the office, just finishing up a little bit of work. We welcome you into the program today. Now time for you to sound off on all the topics that you'd like to talk about today, all the topics you may have heard about throughout the day, and some topics you have not heard about throughout the day. You can sound off on. How do you do that? That's pretty simple. We make it real easy for you to get in touch with us. You can, of course, text in at any time at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. And when you do that, be sure to give us a name. That way we can give you a nice little shout out and let us know where you're listening from whenever you text in to the program. You can also give us a call at 1-800-687-0790. That's 1-800-687-0790. The first voice you hear from when you dial in, he's known around these parts as the Sweater. Nick, the first voice you hear from, who also, by the way, engages in some pretty interesting text message conversations in a text group. Nick, are you doing okay today? Are you doing what you seem a little chippy just from the text threads that I have somehow been a part of. Mm-hmm. I have not participated really in any of them.
Right.
But I am a part of some of the text threads between you and a few other people up here who you're, again, threatening to fight.
So I find it funny how I've sort of been molded into this antagonist, a fire starter, the one who started it.
Yeah.
Which is untrue.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it seems like to me on the text that I've received, you are the one responsible for all this.
So what's funny is...
Am I wrong?
Well, normally when one thinks about the word responsible,
yes,
they think of who initiated.
Yeah, I thought it was you.
It was not me.
Oh.
I did not initiate this disturbing back and forth that I have been roped into.
Yeah.
This individual, I like to think of as a tornado of sorts that kind of pulls people in without their consent. And just involves them.
That's interesting that you reference this person as a tornado when earlier in a text you talked about them being of an advanced age.
I believe the word
being a soap whittler.
Tender age is, I believe, the
I thought you said advanced age.
I may have done both, but I made sure to emphasize that this individual, and you know him as well. He's up there in age, a little long in the tooth. You know.
Wow.
So I'm trying to be respectful. You know, I don't want to throw around the phrase elder abuse. You know, I'm not going to go there yet. But I'm afraid if he keeps bringing me into this, I'll have to start saying that phrase even more often then.
Yeah, hang on. I'm looking through. Yeah, okay. Well, you might be right on the.
Well, I sent it, so yeah, I remember.
No, advanced in years. You
Right.
said advanced in years.
And then,
That's
like,
advanced age.
And then a few lines below that is tender age.
Yeah, tender age.
Right.
I mean,
right.
you're basically talking about Joe Biden at this point. That's what it comes across here. When you say perhaps a calmer hobby would be suited for your tender age, perhaps soap whittling.
Right.
Which I did not know was a thing, but maybe it is.
When you get to that age that this individual is, I think then you'll gain a passion for whittling soap, because it's a carefree.
It seems calming.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can get like a fragrance.
Their minds tend to go a little bit. So
Wow.
it's nice to bring them back down to just something very calming, stable.
Okay.
So it's something you got to think about.
Okay, but you're calm. You're fine today here on the show.
Yeah.
Okay,
my youth keeps me pretty calm.
Okay,
so
I just wanted to make sure that you're grounded, you're good,
Mm-hmm.
you're not angry. I shouldn't expect anything crazy during the show.
As you should never really expect anything crazy from me. Like you said before, though, if I show up, perhaps was this you or Steve who mentioned it's a crazy day? This was Steve, I think, on Monday.
Yeah.
He said if I show up with a T-shirt on, then maybe it was the end of the world.
That's true.
And the eclipse truly
That's true.
offset reality.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
So until that day, I'm grounded.
Okay. All right. Just that's good. Good. Just wanted to make sure. So we've got a lot to get into besides Nick's crazy text messages that he sends out to random people here at the radio station, trying to get them into fights. We've got the Arizona abortion deal. Obviously, that's been making some news today. Trump has had his say on that. We'll get to it. The Washington Post headline: catastrophic, a shock. Arizona's abortion ruling threatens to upend the 2024 races. We'll talk again. This is what the Democrats want to talk about, folks. This is what the press wants. This is what the Democrats want. They don't want to talk about inflation. That have you seen the stories about the inflation going up? Yeah, they don't want to talk about that today. They want to talk about Arizona, and this is what I think Trump is trying to do is get past the abortion issue and not have it as a talking point going into November. So we'll get into all of this during the show today. We've also got Harris County being sued by the state of Texas. We'll talk about why, and a universal basic income. We'll get into that. A Texas congresswoman wants to have reparations in the form of tax breaks. We'll talk about that story, and we've got some other national news to get into. Oh, we've got some other local stories as well, including a story out of Amarillo about squatting picking up in Amarillo. So we've got all of that, much more to get into throughout the program today. You can text in at 806-680-2790. Again, 806-680-2790. And yes, you can give us a call at 1-800-687-0790. A story from the Washington Post: a near total abortion ban slated to go into effect in the coming weeks in Arizona is expected to have a seismic impact on the politics in the battleground states, testing limits of Republican support for abortion restrictions and putting the issue front and center in the November election. Arizona's Supreme Court on Tuesday revived a near total abortion ban or ban on abortion, invoking an 1864 law that forbids the procedure except to save a mother's life and punishes providers with prison time. The decision supersedes Arizona's previous rule, which permitted abortions up to 15 weeks. Arizonans poised to consider the issue in November now that the groups working to amend the state's constitution to enshrine the abortion rights, which include the ACLU of Arizona and Planned Parenthood Advocates of Arizona, say they have acquired enough signatures to establish a ballot measure. Republicans in the state asking the governor in the GOP legislature to come up with a solution, but Republicans in the legislature have so far thwarted Democrat-led attempts to repeal the 1864 law. The developments in Arizona, part of a wave of state actions to reckon with the future of access to reproductive care or abortion after the U.S. Supreme Court, with a conservative majority installed during Trump's presidency, overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. Now, Trump has come out and talked about this a little bit. Trump said that Arizona has gone too far in its abortion ruling. The former president saying today that Arizona went too far after the state's high court issued a ruling outlawing abortion, and added that he would not sign a national ban if reelected president in November. Trump made his comments to reporters and supporters in Atlanta just days after he said abortion should be left up to states to decide, and that he wouldn't support a federal ban on the procedure. Quote, yeah, they did, and I think it'll be straightened out. As you know, it's all about states' rights. It'll be straightened out, Trump said when asked about Arizona's ruling going too far. Quote, I'm sure the governor and everybody else have to bring it back into reason, and it'll be taken care of, I think. But Trump, signaling that Arizona, a key battleground state, went too far in banning abortion, as a sign of just how politically volatile the issue is for Republicans ahead of the November election. Polls show that full abortion bans, without exceptions, for victims of rape and incest are deeply unpopular with voters. And Democrats, again, are planning to use the issue to mobilize their party ahead of the November elections after seeing success with the tactic in the 2022 midterms. Now, this is what we talked about at the very end of the show yesterday. This is the only thing Democrats really have to go on. This is it. And this is why Trump is taking the stance that he's taken, is because he knows that on every other issue, by and large, throughout America, Republicans are winning on every other issue. When it comes to a complete ban on abortion, Republicans aren't winning on that issue. Not right now, they're not. Now, this is why we talked about yesterday. You want to make a real change in America, you want to bring about a real change in the nation, that's when you have to change the hearts and minds of voters by having conversations, by talking to them, by praying for them, by getting churches involved in the pro-life movement, even more so than they are now. That you can't just have Donald Trump get up and say this is how it's going to be and it's going to take care of everything. Trump is pivoting towards a general election and going, how can I get the most votes, period? And he recognizes which lane to go down. Again, we've got a broken country. We have broken people in our country. That's why you have some people who support abortion without any limits. That's why you have people who are just outraged at any type of abortion ban whatsoever. I understand those who want to have a complete abortion ban. I get it. I understand it. I want to protect life too. But you also have to look at the politics of it and go, is this a state's issue? I believe it is a state's issue. That's what we've been talking about this entire time. We leave it up to the states. And Trump recognizes that as of right now, and until we get more and more people on our side on the pro-life movement, it's going to be the only thing that Democrats have right now to run on is a complete ban like we're seeing in Arizona. And they're going to use that against every single Republican state that's out there, and say that all the states are just absolutely crazy. Now, again, when it comes to outlawing abortion, I would love to see it outlawed. But can you win an election with that? So far, the answer has been no. 1-800-687-0790. When we come back, your phone calls, your text, and more.
Sometimes I feel I've got to run away. I've got to.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
I'm Scarlett Johansson. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. You can join the movement to end hunger by donating, volunteering, and advocating. Because when people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/act now.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
FYO wherever you go with the KFYO app. Download it today.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Happy Wednesday. 1-800-687-0790. You can send in your thoughts on the text line. You can also sound off on any of the topics that we've been getting into throughout the show today. Let's see. This out of the Texas Tribune today. The Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton suing Harris County to block a program that would give cash to households. The Texas AG suing Harris County on Tuesday to block a new guaranteed income pilot program that would provide financial assistance to families in the county's poorest neighborhoods. On the federally funded, funded government program, roughly 1,900 Harris County households would receive monthly cash payments of $500 for 18 months. The county put $20.5 million in COVID relief funds to launch the program known as Uplift Harris, which is intended to help households in the county's 10 poorest zip codes who are living 200% below the poverty line with no strings attached. Why? There should be strings attached. There should absolutely be strings attached. The families have already been selected and payments were slated to begin this month. The Conservatives balked at the program after Harris County commissioners approved it in June and have since tried to stop it. State Senator Paul Bentoncourt, a Houston area Republican who frequently has sought to undercut the county's leadership, asked Paxton earlier this year to declare the law unconstitutional. Paxton blasted the program in a legal filing Tuesday, calling it an illegal and illegitimate government overreach and dubbing it the Harris handout. Paxton argues the pilot program violates a section of the Texas Constitution that says no local government can lend its credit or grant public money to or thing of value to individuals. Quote, the scheme is plainly unconstitutional, Paxton said in a statement. Taxpayer money must be spent lawfully and used to advance public interest, not merely redistributed with no accountability or reasonable expectation of a general benefit. I'm suing to stop officials in Harris County from abusing public funds for political gain. And here's the deal, folks. This may be COVID money. It's still your money. It's still taxpayer money. And once the COVID money runs out, then what? Do you really think they're going to get rid of this program? You really think once people are addicted to taking government handouts, whether it's $500 a month, $300 a month, $3,000 a month, once people are addicted to it, once they get a taste of it, they don't run away from it. And when you don't have any strings attached, when you don't have to better your life, when you don't have to spend it on actual needs versus wants, you want to go out and buy some new Jordans with the money, you can go and do that. That's part of the problem here. There should be strings attached. When it's our money, and it is our money, when it's our money and the government is handing it out, there should absolutely be strings attached to it. By the way, there's some of this does overlap a little bit, not completely, but when it comes to using taxpayer money, when you're looking at school choice. This is why so many people tell you there's going to be strings attached, because once you give money out, once you hand money out, there's going to be strings attached, because people are going to want to know, what exactly are you or a school or a private school or whomever gets the money, what are you using that money for, and is it actually bettering anyone? Otherwise, we just give out money to everybody and see what happens. So Harris County, they want to give out money. You read these articles, it's going only to the poorest people. Well, that doesn't matter. They can still abuse the money. They can still abuse the system. I don't care if it's going to the richest people. They can still abuse it too. It's our money. It's not free money. Too many people in government, they come across, it's COVID money, so we can just spend it. Well, what happens when it runs out? Look at a lot of these school districts going around saying, we're losing money. We don't have enough money. It's because they spent a lot of COVID money on different projects, and now they don't have money to cover some of these different programs that they instituted. Now, yes, there's also an issue with people not having enough students in the classrooms anymore, and students going to private school and being taught at home. And so that's dealt a blow to some of these school districts. But a lot of these counties, a lot of these school districts, a lot of these governments, they got addicted to the COVID money. And that's not always going to be around. We'll be right back.
Call in to the Chad Hasty Show at 1-800-687-0790. The Chad Hasty Show, broadcasting on the Texas Town Square Media Network.
Listen up. It's the fourth quarter. You're almost there. Parents, teachers, counselors, coaches, your boys just turned 18, but they need one more push. Don't let them forget to register with the Selective Service System. It's required by law, and if they don't register, they'll miss out on many important federal benefits. Say it with me. SSS.gov. SSS.gov. Let's get them registered today.
A tornado is on the ground. You're at work, your spouse is at a meeting, the kids are at 3 different schools, power and cell are out, and your home is inaccessible. Now what? Have a preset meetup plan. Share it with everyone in your family and practice it. Know the emergency plans at work and school, too. Get ahead of what's ahead. Be informed, make a plan, build a kit. #TexasReady. Go to txready.org for more information.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. Chad Hasty, talking the news. At the start, middle, and end of your drive home, and when news breaks. This is the Chad Hasty Show.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Happy Wednesday. You can send in your thoughts on the text line, 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. How about this story? This out of the Dallas Morning News today. Who are Texas's teachers? Some schools are, quote, hiring people off the street. A state leader says the rate of Texas teachers leaving the classroom declining after hitting a historic high following the COVID pandemic. Education Commissioner Mike Morath presenting fresh hiring data on Wednesday, telling State Board of Education members that the state is moving in a better direction. Still, schools are struggling with educator recruitment and retention. The challenges mean districts are hiring more and more teachers that do not hold a state certification. Morath said that in recent years, it appears some schools have just, quote, given up on teacher certification and moved to hiring people off the street. And is that always a bad thing, by the way? Like, what if the person's a really good, really good at business? They're really good at their business. Maybe they want to take a different direction. They want to go and hire, and they didn't go through a few years of college to teach you how to be a teacher. That may not be bad. I'm wondering how many of these teachers that are putting up the pride flags in schools and everything else were, they went through and had their certification done. And just because you're certified doesn't mean that you're going to be a great teacher. I think that we've seen that in the past. Anyway, teacher attrition is down. Lack of respect and support still drives some out. While it's still higher than pre-pandemic baseline, the rate of Texas teachers leaving the classroom is trending downward. The 2022-23 school year saw a 13.4% teacher attrition rate. That figure dropped in the 23-24 year to 12.2%. In the decade before COVID, teacher attrition hovered around 10%. Quote, teachers are quitting the profession in slightly higher numbers than they did historically, Morath said. Lack of respect and support, excessive workload, and low pay among the common reasons educators have given for why they think about leaving the classroom. Fewer new teachers take traditional route to the classroom, studying to be an educator, while in college, roughly 1 in 3 new teachers hired in Texas were uncertified, meaning the state has no way to know if they received a rigorous training. The percentage of non-certified new hires has grown to 34%, a historic high. Some uncertified educators are prepared to take on a classroom of their own, Morath said. In Dallas ISD, for example, uncertified educators get additional training and support during the school year. The district also pairs new hires with mentors to guide them. Morath warned that many teachers without certification are not ready and quit prematurely. The trend has prompted concern among some teacher groups. Quote, it's unfair to the students, to the parents, and the educator themselves. They're not fully prepared, said the president of Alliance AFT. I don't know of an attorney that would be allowed to practice the law without passing the bar exam. Typically, to become a certified teacher in Texas, teaching candidates have to have a bachelor's degree, complete an educator prep program, and pass related exams, submit a state application, and go through a background check. The path to becoming a teacher without state certification is less prescribed in some places. It's as if district leaders say, if you have a heartbeat, come on in. Well, they've got to hire somebody. And if you can find people who are good fits, that doesn't mean they can't teach people. Just because you don't have a teaching certificate doesn't mean you can't educate people. I think we've seen, and again, this is where I think some get off on this idea that, oh, well, we've got to have certified teachers because they're the only ones who will be able to educate people. We've seen a lot of folks in recent years who have become who have homeschooled their kids because they've realized, hey, I can do the job. Now, not every parent can, and not everyone can be a teacher. Not everyone can be an educator. Not everyone definitely can step foot in a classroom, certified or not certified, can step foot in a classroom and be able to educate students. It is a tough job, and it gets tougher when you have no accountability whatsoever in the classroom when it comes to discipline. When you have a teacher, certified or non-certified, go into some of these classrooms and there's absolutely no discipline whatsoever, it's going to be tough for that teacher to be successful. It's going to be very tough for that teacher to be successful. So I don't think certification is always the end all be all. I think we've got some other problems inside the schools. While district leaders are desperate to find good teachers, they say the state has not taken serious action to address health insurance costs, lagging pay, and political divisions that bleed into classrooms. Well, if we're serious about addressing the teacher shortage and getting more people certified, let's put our money where our mouth is and support teachers. Remember, it's all about paying the teachers more. Now they don't have a number. There's never a number that they give out to where everyone's just going to be happy. And they're going to say that's enough money. That's exactly how much money teachers need to make. Again, I think that you've seen different attempts here from school districts. Some going to the 4-day work week. You've seen some school districts that have brought some discipline back or attempt to bring some disciplinary measures back to the classroom. But as we've talked about on this show, and then we've had people on the show before who are either former educators or they're just now getting out of education, the number one complaint isn't always money from the actual teacher. It is lack of discipline in the classroom and lack of support from the administration. Those are two of the biggest reasons why teachers have been getting out of the profession. 1-800-687-0790. That story popping up just a little bit ago over at the Dallas Morning News. This from the Washington Examiner. The headline, "No Taxation Without Reparations." Texas Democrat leans into fresh idea, breathing life back into the reparations movement. Freshman Representative Jasmine Crockett, she's a little crazy, seemed to endorse the idea that black Americans should be exempt from paying taxes as a form of reparations for the injustices of slavery. During an interview with the Black Lawyers podcast, Crockett said she heard the idea of exempting taxes for black Americans from a celebrity, and she said it wasn't a bad idea. That's great. That's where we get our best ideas are from the celebrities out there. One of the things they propose is that black folk not have to pay taxes for a certain amount of time because that puts money back into your pocket, Crockett told the host Jay Carter. Crockett points out the limitations of the plan, such as some black Americans being too poor and already not paying taxes. Quote, "If you do the no tax thing for people that are already, say, struggling and not paying taxes in the first place, it really doesn't," Crockett said when Carter interrupted to suggest that people may want those checks like they got from COVID. Crockett argues that reparations are necessary and that more studies on the matter and investments must be done. Quote, "So many black folk, not only do you owe for the labor that was stolen and killed and the other things, but the fact is we end up being so far behind," Crockett said. Give me a break. Reparation task forces have been established in major Democrat cities like San Francisco, St. Louis, Missouri, Boston, St. Paul, Minnesota, as well as the entire state of California. However, reparations have yet to be implemented, nor should they be implemented. And addressing the issue on a national level, crazy woman Representative Cori Bush, Democrat of Missouri, introduced a $14 trillion reparations bill to the House last year. She was basically laughed off the floor. 806-680-2790. When we come back, your phone calls, your text messages, and much more.
The Titan of Texas Talk Radio, Chad Hasty.
Talking with newsmakers and about the issues that matter to you. The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Chad's show is also digital with the Chad Hasty Show podcast. The Chad Hasty Show podcast can be downloaded on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and the Radio On Demand page at kfyo.com. The Chad Hasty Show, all across Texas during your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
On the road with Mr. Rhodes.
Hey, here's the shocker. Cars are bigger than people. So if you're behind the wheel, be careful. Those crosswalk stripes, they aren't left over from National Paint a Street like a zebra day. They mean you need to stop for people in crosswalks and yield the right of way when turning at intersections. And no looking at phones, photos, texts, emails, or holding your jeans or where that nickel fell. Oh, and please,
slow down.
Sound advice. mixed in with professional sound effects.
Be safe, drive smart. A message from TxDOT.
To Jerry Reynolds' Test Drive of the Week, Thursday mornings at 7:35 during Sunrise LBK. News Talk KFYO.
All right, back on the Chad Easty Show. Thank you very much for tuning in today. You can send in your thoughts on the text line, 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Let's see, how about this? This is out of News Channel 10 up in the Panhandle. Squatting trend taking over Potter County properties. You've probably heard about this happening nationally. It's all over the state as well. It's an issue being seen across the U.S. Squatters taking over properties that belong to rightful owners. Potter County constables say they're seeing an influx of squatters, also known as trespassers, that are taking over properties. Quote, a lot of the homeless, people with mental health issues. It's really a lot of drug-related stuff, said Constable Daryl Wirtz, Potter County Precinct Number 1. He says they're entering vacant homes and setting up shop. Quote, the biggest problem is they're finding people that are on housing assistance, whether it be Veterans HUD, Coming Home program. They're finding these people that are kind of like, let me stay here a night, and they stay here, and their friends come in, and they're kind of taking it over. They explained one situation he recently responded to. The tenant is being evicted because all 30-plus people coming and going from his house, he's locking himself in his bedroom because he can't do anything now, and they've taken over. Several other people in his house have evicted from other locations, said Wirtz. One home taken over by squatters is a block away from Sam Houston Middle School, bringing up a public safety concern. Don't you've got child safety. You don't know who's around. You don't know what's happening inside the house. You don't know what they're bringing in. It just doesn't look appealing. There's no curb appeal on it either. You got a lot of traffic and individuals coming in and out of your neighborhood, said Constable Georgia Estrada, Potter County Precinct 2. Unlike California and New York, constables say Texas landlord can evict someone in 28 days if done properly. If the constables are dealing with a house that is vacant, they will give a trespass warning and get them out immediately. Property owners are encouraged, even if you have vacancies, to do inspections and put up no trespassing signs. I don't know what good that'll do. Constables say squatters will especially try and enter a home on cold and rainy days. If you see it happening in your neighborhood, you're asked to call the constables. Take action. We need citizen participation. We need citizen engagement because we can't be everywhere all the time and we don't know what's going on without you telling us. So it's very important. So again, this out in Potter County, they're warning about squatters all over the place. It's happening all over the U.S. 1-800-687-0790. Let's go to Lee. Lee, what's going on today?
How you doing? Okay, I'm just listening to you. I got something for the squatters problem. I just thought about it. I got some squatters falling in my house. It's called a 9mm, and it works pretty good. I don't have no.
That'll get some people out. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, now listen. It's very interesting times we're living in. You're talking about reparations. Slavery ended. I'm not too good at math, but over 170 years ago. If you're still blaming that for why you're not succeeding or where you're at in life, you have bigger issues than that. I just don't understand it. And, today I saw Muslims or people that are sympathetic to Hamas marching through the Capitol. And the two thoughts occurred to me. Are they going to be treated like the people that were arrested for January 6th? Probably not. And how soon will it be before they start asking for reparations for being in this country? And they need money. It's like, I guess we deal with the illegals, get the money from them, we can spread it around. I just don't know what's going to happen to this country. Chad, do you ever think that maybe we just went a little bit over on the canoe and it's going to flip over into the water? I'm serious. I mean, it's amazing. Every day, I think nothing. That's the craziest, dumbest thing I've ever in my life. But waiting an hour. And something else.
Yeah, no, they'll find a way to outdo one another. They will. It should just wait. Something dumber will be said tomorrow. Listen, it's all about. I don't. The people who are calling for reparations in the Senate and in the House, I don't take them seriously. They're buying votes.
No.
They're attempting to buy votes. You look at in California and how many times it's come up in California. Which, by the way, California had no slaves. Just to clarify, the state of California had no slavery, and they're talking about reparations. So I don't know how you even pulled that off in California. But again, even in California, where they do not mind spending money, they've said this would cost way too much. There's no way we can afford this. And so it's all about trying to buy votes and keep people stupid. And I mean, that's really what it's about. If Democrats want to blame, why poor people are in a cycle, you got to look at Democrat policies for why that's happening, and they don't want to admit that. Lee, thank you very much for the call. Have a great day. We'll be right back.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media. Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday out there. You can send in your thoughts on the text line at 806-680-2790, and you can also give us a call at 1-800-687-0790. That's 1-800-687-0790. Sound off on any of the issues that we have been talking about. One texter, Mud, from Burke Burnett, saying, I seriously don't understand how the squatter thing is even a thing. You had to commit burglary in order to get into the home. That from Mud. It is... in a lot of these squatter cases, it seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong, so you can, folks, feel free to correct me if I am here, because the squatters thing, it's shocking to me that it happens, because you would think that it would be almost impossible for something like this to happen, but you see in some cases where people are not evicted after a certain amount of time, and they're still breaking trespassing laws, but they claim squatters' rights or whatever it may be. In other states, it's a little bit more lenient than it is in Texas when it comes to the so-called squatters' rights. You also have some of these places, and we've all seen them in different neighborhoods. We've all seen these homes that are vacant in neighborhoods where people just take over the house. It's just like some of the homeless encampments that you see in larger cities where you have homeless who will take over under a bridge, and an overpass. They'll take that over, and you'll see an encampment there. You'll see an encampment in some places off of a highway that's kind of where it's not exactly right in the line of sight. In fact, I saw one the other day here in Lubbock driving around where there were just a bunch of these little tents, like people were camping out, and it was like a little encampment that people had. And so you see in some of these neighborhoods where you have vacant homes and you don't have a real big codes enforcement team going out and enforcing some of these codes, and people just they break into the homes. Yes, they're breaking in, but they stay there. And for whatever reason, in some places, it's hard to get them out. Now, again, you'd think it would be easier, but that's not always the case. Now, again, as Lee brought up, if you've got a 9mm, and even the governor had tweeted out that, remember, you do have a right to home defense. You do have the castle doctrine here in Texas if somebody's deciding to squat in your home, on your property. You do have a right to defend yourself. So that's something that I'm with you though. It's amazing to see that even happen. But then again, you take a look at some of these areas of blight. You take a look at some of these areas in either it happens in larger cities too, where even neighborhoods are abandoned, and people just move in and they take over the homes. And that's what happens, and it presents a very, 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 very dangerous situation at times. Let's see. Texas needs to pass a squatters law that allows owners to have the police remove them immediately. You can send in your thoughts on the text line 806-680-2790. House Republicans, by the way, bringing down the Speaker's third attempt to reauthorize a controversial spy power piece of legislation on Wednesday, marking a fresh blow to the embattled Speaker. Mike Johnson, now GOP leader, scrambling to find a new plan to authorize the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act after 19 House Republicans voted to block the plan to change the section of the law that allows the intelligence community to gather and sort communications of foreign targets without a warrant. Johnson plowed ahead with efforts to bring the bill to the floor despite growing angst in his right flank and former President Donald Trump urging Republicans to kill the surveillance law. Congress now has to clear the path to extending a program that the administrations in both parties have touted as vital to national security before its April 19th expiration. Johnson prepared to pull his members into a closed-door meeting later Wednesday. He told reporters, "We will regroup and reformulate another plan. We cannot allow the authority to expire. It's too important for national security." House conservatives, who marched outside to hold an impromptu press conference after the bill ran aground, warning that not only do they take issue with the policy behind wiretapping, but that Johnson took the wrong path to get there. Quote, "It's been a very convoluted process. It's been decidedly manipulated right now to make certain amendments can't be heard," said Representative Scott Perry, one of the 19 Republicans who blocked the bill. He characterized Washington as disappointment theater. Republicans will now try in private to bridge their deep divides. The surveillance legislation negotiated by leadership aimed at improving the transparency and oversight of the program, but did not include sweeping changes pushed for by bipartisan coalitions that span privacy-minded progressives and libertarian-leaning Republicans. So that happening a little bit earlier today. 806-680-2790. You can get in your thoughts on the text line. And sound off on that. Joe Biden saying that the prosecution of Julian Assange may be thrown out by the U.S. Biden saying that the U.S. is considering dropping its prosecution against the WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange. For years, Australia has called on the U.S. to drop its prosecution against Assange, an Australian citizen who has fought U.S. extradition efforts from prison in the U.K. He asked about the request on Wednesday as he hosted the Japanese Prime Minister for an official visit. Biden said, "We're considering it." Assange has been indicted on 17 espionage charges, one charge of computer misuse over his website's publication over a trove of classified documents almost 15 years ago. American prosecutors allege that Assange encouraged and helped U.S. Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning to steal diplomatic cables and military files that WikiLeaks published, putting lives at risk. Australia argues there's a disconnect between the U.S. treatment of Assange and Manning. Then U.S. President Barack Obama commuted Manning's 35-year sentence to 7 years, which allowed a release in 2017. Assange's supporters say he's a journalist protected by the First Amendment who exposed U.S. military wrongdoing in Iraq and Afghanistan that was of public interest. So that's the latest on Julian Assange. The U.S. may drop their case against Assange. That could be pretty interesting. 806-680-2790. You can send in your thoughts on the text line. A couple of texts, just a suggestion. Maybe perhaps the homeowner, property owner, should go in, tear gas with a tear gas gun and a whole bunch of cartridges. That would get people out. That's true, Linda. That would probably evacuate the good amount of people if they were to do that. When we come back, your phone calls, your text messages, and so much more here on the Chad Hasty Show.
The Titan of Texas Talk Radio, Chad Hasty.
It's election season, and if you're running for elected office anywhere across the listening area, you can contact Chad to appear on the show. Send Chad an email to chad@kfyo.com with your name, contact info, and the office you're running for, and he'll get back to you. Or you can call in your information during the show to 1-800-687-0790. All across Texas, this is The Chad Hasty Show.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. VA disability compensation is a monthly tax-free payment to veterans who got sick or injured in the military and to veterans whose service worsened an existing condition. You may qualify for VA disability compensation for physical and mental health conditions that developed or worsened due to service. Learn more at va.gov/disability.
Weeknights at 7 on News Talk KFYO and the KFYO app.
The Chad Hasty Show. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Hope you're doing well. You can send in your thoughts on the text line 806-680-2790. Want to get your thoughts on this. This happened yesterday, and I want to see if you like this idea or if you think this is a bad idea. Michigan school shooters' parents get 10 years. It's out of Politico. The parents of the first parents convicted in the U.S. Of a mass shooting were sentenced to at least 10 years in prison Tuesday as a Michigan judge lamented missed opportunities that could have prevented their teenage son from possessing a gun and killing 4 students in 2021. Quote, these convictions are not about poor parenting, the Oakland County judge, Cheryl Matthews, said. These convictions confirm repeated acts or lack of acts that could have halted an oncoming runaway train. The hearing in a crowded, tense courtroom was the climax of an extraordinary effort to make others, besides the 15-year-old attacker, criminally responsible for a school shooting. Jennifer and James Crumbley did not know that Ethan had a handgun that he called his beauty in a backpack when he was dropped off at Oxford High School. But prosecutors convinced jurors that the parents still played a disastrous role in his violence. The Crumbleys were accused of not securing the newly purchased gun at a home and acting indifferently to signs that Ethan's deteriorating mental health, especially when confronted with chilling classroom drawings earlier that same day. The Crumbleys, earlier this year, were convicted of involuntary manslaughter. Quote, "The blood of our children is on your hands too," said Craig Schilling during the Tuesday sentencing hearing, wearing a hoodie with the image of his son Justin on his chest. Nicole Buskelli, a mother of a shooting victim, told the Crumbleys they failed at parenting. While you were purchasing a gun for your son and leaving it unlocked, one of the handful of family members there spoke in court, I was helping her finish her college essays. Prosecutor Karen McDonald asked the judge to stretch beyond the sentencing guidelines and order a minimum of a 10-year prison sentence. Defense attorneys sought to keep the Crumbleys out of prison, noting they had already spent nearly 2.5 years in jail after failing to meet a $500,000 bond after their arrest. They will get credit for that jail time and become eligible for parole after serving 10 years in custody. If release from prison is denied, they could be held for up to 15 years. So, their 15-year-old son, you have a 15-year-old son who has, according to prosecutors, mental health issues. Apparently, Ethan had sketched images of a gun, a bullet, and a wounded man on a math paper. He had also written that the thoughts won't stop, help me, blood everywhere, my life is useless. Ethan had told a counselor he was sad. A grandmother had died and his only friend suddenly moved away, but the drawing only reflected his interest in creating video games. His parents were called into a meeting at the school that lasted less than 15 minutes. They did not mention the gun resembled one that the father had just purchased 4 days earlier, a 6-hour 9mm. School staff did not demand that Ethan go home, but were surprised when the Crumbleys did not volunteer it. Instead, they left with a list of mental health providers and said they were returning to work. Later that day, their son pulled a handgun from his backpack and began shooting, killing 4 people, 4 children, and wounding 7 others. So are you okay with parents doing time if their teenager shoots up a school? And where do you extend that to? If a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old goes out and commits a crime, do you also punish the parents? And if you're okay with that, where do you draw the line as far as people who ignored signs? Do you blame the school? School didn't send them home. School called the parents. School says, we were surprised that they didn't take Ethan out of the school, but we didn't send him home. The counselor, who was too distraught, was worried about the images, apparently not worried enough to make sure that the student goes home. I see why people would like this idea of prosecuting the parents and saying the parents are responsible, but at what age are you responsible for your own actions? Does a 15-year-old know what they're doing when they go and take a gun from their dad and decide that they're going to shoot people with it? And if we are okay with this, then what about this idea? Should we start prosecuting the prosecutors who release people from jail early and they go out and commit crimes? What about the prosecutors, the DAs, who say, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and let you out. We're going to go ahead and let you out. You've committed a crime, but we don't want to lock you up. We're going to let you go. We're going to do a slap on the wrist and let you go, and you go out and you commit another crime. Should the prosecutor then be prosecuted for allowing a criminal to go out and possibly commit other acts against people? What your thoughts are on this? Do you go after the parents? Do you go after the parents for 15 years? Do you put them in prison for this? Is it a fine? What do you do here? What are your thoughts on prosecuting others for the crime of somebody else? And where do you draw the line? Where do you say, no, you can't blame it? Do you blame? What about brothers and sisters? What about best friends? Where do you draw the line when it comes to who should have known and who should have prevented something like this? 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Kim in Lubbock. Why didn't the school call the police? The counselor, the principal, or whoever had the parents come into the school should have also been charged if this is how it's going to be. See, the school did what they felt was just enough. Hey, we called the parents. And we told the parents that their kid was disturbed and needed mental health help. And we told the parents that, hey, it might be a good idea to take your kid out of school, but we didn't demand it. In fact, we were shocked, but we didn't suggest it or anything. So the school was concerned, but not really. See, this is what teachers kind of have to put up with. We were talking earlier about what teachers have to put up with in the classroom. This is sort of it, where the schools will call a parent. The schools will sort of get a parent involved, but not too much. We can't force too much when it comes to getting the kid out of the school, because then, eyebrows might be raised. I want to hear your thoughts on this when we come back. We've also got your text messages. When we return here on the Chad HD Show.
The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. Sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. Today's markets from the Texas Department of Ag.
Well, howdy, neighbors. Texas feeder cattle auction importing prices steady to $12 lower. Cattle futures also down. April live cattle futures down $1.62. Close at $179.08. April feeder cattle futures down $2.42. Close at $238.28. May cotton futures down. Close at $85.31. May wheat futures up 17 cents, close at $5.94 a bushel. May corn up 3 pennies to close at $4.34, and May soybean futures down 9 cents, close at $11.65 a bushel. May soybean meal futures down $4.70, close at $330.90 per ton. April class 3 milk futures down 9 cents, close at $15.47 a hundred. May crude oil futures up $1, close at $86.23 per barrel, and the Dow Jones is down 422 points. Woo! Closed at 38,461. And that's the market roundup from the Texas Department of Agriculture. I'm your commissioner, Sid Miller. And remember, friends, Texas agriculture matters. So.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. Don't you forget about Chad at Chad Hasty Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and on your radio. Now back to the Chad Hasty Show.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. You can send in your thoughts on the text line 806-680-2790. One texter says if the brother, sister, or friend knows that the young man's having mental health issues, then buys him a gun as a gift, yes, they should be culpable or liable, just like the parents are. But they did not. No one bought this gun for him. This was the father's gun that was left unlocked. It was, it was in the house. It wasn't in a safe, but it was in the house, and the son took the gun. There are probably a lot of you out there who have guns around the home. And maybe you have children in the home, maybe you don't, but I know people who have guns just around the home, and they don't have them all locked up. So no one bought this kid a gun. This was the father's gun that the 15-year-old took. Let's go to the phones. And Andy, you're on the Chad Hasty Show.
Hello, Chad. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Well, I'm calling from rural Texas. What rural is that?
I'm sorry, Andy. What was that? You broke up.
I'm calling from rural Texas, just to the east of you. You know where that's at?
Oh, where's that?
All close to Aspermont, Guthrie.
All right. Great.
Maybe a little off topic, but one of the concerns that I have with a lot of the dialogue that I hear from radio hosts, and we talk about cashless bail and who's culpable and who's responsible, especially on the cashless bail, and releasing criminals out to do more harm and damage. I have not heard one person ever, congressman, radio talk show host, ever talk about the judges. These people are drugged in front of a judge.
Yeah.
And a defense attorney. He may be the most left liberal crazy son of a gun you've ever met.
Yeah.
But they make a recommendation to the judge. And the judge has in front of him this guy's criminal history. And I've never heard anyone say the judge made a mistake.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's a good point.
And it drives me crazy, and especially listening to Hannity. And I like Sean. He's a good guy. And you're a good guy, and Levin's a good guy. But nobody ever holds the judges. The judge is responsible for making sure these crazy left-wing DAs don't get away with this.
Yeah.
They go, bail has nothing to do with it. The judge should say, no, he's been in the pen 4 times. He ain't getting back out.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. That's a great point.
And I just called to bring that to your attention, whether you agreed with me or not. I'd just like to hear radio hosts talk more about the judges that are doing this.
Yeah. Now, listen, you bring up a great point. So let me ask you, would you want to hold – what do you think about this story? Would you want to hold people, DAs, judges, responsible if someone who had committed a crime, if they were released, slap on the wrist and released, would you want to hold them responsible?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If they went in and the DA said, it doesn't matter, bail or cashless bail.
Yeah.
Bail actually has nothing to do with it. Bail has been a scam that put pocket in, like old Kenneth Knowles for years and years. Put money in their pockets for years and years. Doesn't matter. If the DA says, I just want to let him go, well, the judge has a responsibility to say, no, district attorney, this guy's been in jail 4 times. He's had 4 DWIs. He's had 4 firearms convictions. He ain't going anywhere.
He's
staying in county.
Now, one thing to remember is sometimes these DAs also don't prosecute, and they don't move forward with the prosecution. They just release, and that's why judges aren't always mentioned. I do want to bring that up. Is that some of these judges don't get an attempt to say to the DA that you're wrong.
Okay, and I understand that. But typically, violent criminals are brought before a judge.
Typically they are.
But the bail is if the DA doesn't prosecute, a violent criminal, absolutely they need to be held accountable.
Yeah.
And if a DA goes in before a judge and says, "No, no bail," and the judge says, "All right, let him go," well, then both of them need to be held accountable.
Yeah.
Not just the liberal DA.
Yeah.
The judge needs to be held accountable as well.
Yeah, and I think that's also why you don't hear a lot of the talk of the judges, is because in many of these cases that we're seeing in some of the larger cities, not so much in the smaller counties, smaller cities, but like in your Austins and Dallas, the DAs won't even prosecute somebody who has stolen, let's say, $100 worth of whatever. They won't even prosecute you. They won't even bring it to a judge. They won't fine you. They won't do anything. They'll just let you go. And you're out of. You can go out and commit another crime. And as we know, if you're willing to steal $100 from somebody or $100 worth of merchandise or whatever it may be, there might be a chance that you don't mind, slapping somebody upside the head and robbing them at some point. So I think that's why you hear so much about the DAs, is because oftentimes they don't get the judges don't have the opportunity to hear about some of these criminals.
Well, okay, and I understand that, but I don't know that there's a case where somebody has committed a violent crime that it didn't go before a judge. An extremely violent. That's primarily what we're talking about in America.
Well, no, I mean sometimes we're talking about somebody who is a thief. They're robbing from other people, or they're a drug abuser, and you have these DAs who they're not going to prosecute the drug abuser. They're not going to prosecute the person who is stealing from a store, and then that person. I mean, how many times do we see escalation? Where if you're able to get away with a crime, you may decide you're going to escalate and do something else, and that's where hey, we could have put this person in jail before they decided to pull a gun on someone and shoot them because they had $100 in their pocket.
Yes, sir. And you know what? I will concede that point. You're 100% right. That does happen.
So yeah, no, I agree. If a judge is letting someone out, for a violent crime, yeah, we gotta take a look at the judge too.
Well, and I guess my point is, you have one scenario. You have DAs letting people go, not charging them. Okay, DA needs to be held accountable. But I hear on the radio all the time the problem is cash, and you do too. Come on, Chad, you do too. Cash this bail, cash this bail, cash this bail.
Yeah.
That is before a judge. If bail is ever brought up, they're standing in front of a judge.
Yeah.
So, to blame, and Sean is one of the biggest perpetrators of this. Well, cash this bail, that's what caused it. It wouldn't have happened. No. The judge knew that guy was bad and accepted the recommendation of the DA. The judge is culpable. The judge is responsible.
Yeah. All right. I got you.
All right, and I'll quit belaboring the point, and I appreciate all the time you gave me.
Hey, Andy, have a great day.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate you being out there. Texter says you're wrong. Multiple agencies, including Reuters, report that the parents bought the handgun or that the parent gave the handgun to their son as an early Christmas present just 4 days before the shooting. That may be true. I'm just telling you what I'm looking at. It doesn't say this in the story that I have in front of me. And you may be right, but I'm just going off of what I have in front of me. It could be where they bought this for their kid. Bought the handgun for their kid. This story doesn't say that in at least the one that I have in front of me. And again, if that's true, then maybe that does change things a little bit. But even in the quotes that I'm seeing here, nobody even brings that up. Let's see. Yeah, I'm trying to look through the story here. That's And maybe they did buy it for him. I don't know. Again, the story that I've got in front of me, it does not say that. But again, so it sounds like you're okay prosecuting the parents on that. And okay, so we know where you're coming from on that. 1-800-687-0790. When we come back, got more text messages to get to. Your phone calls, your text, and more.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
There will be one less birthday party to celebrate today. One less coffee date with a friend today. One less family dinner today. Because there will be one less motorcycle rider on the road today. On average, a motorcyclist is killed on Texas roads every day. When you're behind the wheel, obey the speed limit and be extra careful at intersections. Let's start turning that one less into one more. Please share the road and look twice for motorcycles. There's a life riding on it. A message from TxDOT.
Buck Sexton and Sean Hannity, weekdays on KFYO.
All right, back on the Chad Hasty Show. All right. Yeah, just having to wrap up dinner plans there, that's all. You know, when you're in a mood for a really good sandwich, sometimes, Nick, you're like, a sandwich sounds really good right about now. I know how you are. You like the sandwiches. So, yeah, just having to confer here where we're going to go and get sandwiches. Let's see. Elizabeth weighed in. You spent some good time discussing teacher preparation, competence, certification. Got my Texas lifetime teaching certificate in broadfield science in 1985. At that time, I was one of the very few people who actually had a degree in their subject, general biology in my case. Most people had a degree in secondary education or elementary education. I went through all of the secondary ed training programs and learned a few things, but the main way to learn to teach is to do it. Student teaching helps some, but a teacher needs to have at least 2 or 3 years under their belt before they have learned enough to be truly effective. Sadly, most teachers don't last that long. I didn't. I got out of the public schools after a year and a half because of the enormous workload. The need to be a policeman at all times, and large class sizes for science laboratories, 27 to 34 students, and of course, relatively low pay. Certification in and of itself doesn't mean much except someone has jumped through enough hoops to have a reasonable command of English. I would hope things have changed since 1985. I hope they've changed for the better, but the current results suggest differently. My evidence for lack of positive change in public school education is taken from my experience teaching college-level courses. There's a wide range of abilities in almost any college classroom. I taught mostly at Tarrant County and saw the most brilliant students you could imagine, as well as students who were woefully ill-prepared on their best day. But the product that public schools were putting out there was not high quality on average. It was a lot of variation in student prep, though. I don't think there's enough money on the planet to entice me back into a secondary public classroom or a public school classroom. It makes me really sad to say that. Thank you, Elizabeth. You can chime in on the text line, 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. You can weigh in on the text line. Joe Biden, by the way. Oh, Joe. Joe was criticizing the Arizona Supreme Court, in their ruling going back to 1894 or whatever. Joe said, elect me, I'm in the 20th century. Biden telling Arizona voters upset about the abortion ruling. He then corrected himself. Biden appealed to Arizona voters during a press conference at the White House as he attempted to court those who are upset over the state's abortion ruling. Biden made the remarks during a joint press conference with the Japanese Prime Minister. The president was asked for his reaction to the recent ruling by the state Supreme Court that outlawed abortion for non-threatening cases. He said, quote, elect me, I'm in the 20th century. Biden misspoke in his reply before correcting himself. I mean 21st century, not back then. They weren't even a state. Biden's remark, which was aimed at the 160-year-old law that was ruled active by the Arizona Supreme Court this week, was introduced back in 1843. 1843, when the state was still a U.S. territory. The Arizona Supreme Court issued the ruling Tuesday, reverting the state back to a pre-statehood law that outlawed abortion in nearly all circumstances except when the mother's life is at risk. The law was never repealed, and the state court allowed the ban to remain in place last year as long as it was compatible with the 2022 law that allowed women to get an abortion within the first 15 weeks of pregnancy. By the way, Gavin Newsom, apparently COVID is over in California. Gavin Newsom ordering state workers back into the office. Governor Gavin Newsom setting a government-wide requirement that state employees work from the office 2 days a week starting in June. Woo! According to a memo his cabinet secretary sent to state officials Wednesday, shared with the Politico, state employees will have to return to the office June 17th. Workers will be eligible for a case-by-case exemption based on individual circumstances and department needs, she said in the memo. Well, if you can work from home, do it. Fine with me. But I guess in California, they finally realized COVID is over. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay safe out there. Stay healthy. God bless you all. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media.